We're live now.
Hi, thank you, Maria. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from BioTech. Today, we're going to discuss about biotech and medtech sector, investments, startups in the field. Today, we have two entrepreneurs and investors who's going to share their insights about biotech and medtech and how things have evolved during the pandemic. So myself, sorry to introduce myself. Those who don't know me, I come every week, Monday to Friday. My name is Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of BioTech, and I'm based here in Singapore. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Hi, Fabio. Hi, Daniel.
Hi there.
Oh, nice to be here. Glad that you invite me, and I'm honored to be part of this event.
Awesome. Welcome.
Fabio, I think we were on a, we've been on a, I think we've been on a conference together before, actually. And
it can be.
You made some particularly good comments. I think it was, I can't remember what it was about, but they were especially pertinent.
Right. Great. It's a small world. And because of COVID-19, we've just gotten more closer because of the internet, right? Previously, it was like flying to different countries, attending conferences, bumping into each other, but now it's all like, squeezed into one, screen. So, Daniel, please help our audience introduce yourself. What do you do? And we then take the questions after that.
Okay, sure. Just really my background more than anything. I'm an entrepreneur and have been I started in corporate finance. I then wrote financial journalism for maybe 8-10 years. Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Forbes, all the regular ones. This is back when they actually used to practice journalism rather than today, and there's a huge difference. So I mean, this is when you'd really get a sort of lecture, for handing anything in that wasn't 100% accurate.
In the background. Sorry to interrupt. I can hear some voices in the background. Has somebody
Is this okay?
Session?
There's no voices.
Probably it's not you. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, probably the microphone. Is this okay?
I think it's okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back when I was trained by what sort of the editors out of the 70s, who were really kind of thoroughly trained. I think the media is a very different place these days, and I went kind of almost by accident out of those two professions, corporate finance, financial journalism. I realized I was able to help on a consultative basis a lot of kind of growth companies, which I did in Europe and Asia. Ended up out here in Asia, 2011.
Right.
And building businesses, and I've been doing that since, and also starting businesses that have failed. Just actually more so than building businesses. The ones that I've managed to build have done very well. I've been lucky in that sense. But there's definitely a high rate of rejection that you go through. So that's my background. I mean, it's has sort of flavors of academic and commercial.
Right. Thank you, Daniel. Welcome to VCTV. We have enough time between two speakers today, so we'll get some more questions from you, hear more from you about your journey in Asia. Thank you, Fabio. Please help introduce yourself to our audience. Fabio.
Yes, I'm an economist by training. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I have a very weak connection. I'm outside on the balcony, so you might occasionally hear some background
Okay.
noise. That's the only place where I can. I'm an economist by training. I'm a PhD from the University of Chicago, and I had a fairly variegated career because I started at the International Monetary Fund. Then I moved to the European Central Bank for the launch of the euro. Then I went into the real world of finance, and I worked at Goldman Sachs in London.
Right.
And then I moved in the Arabian Peninsula, and I worked in Qatar, Dubai, and lately in Oman. In my last incarnation, I am partner of investment bank, which has two main objectives. One is to invest in innovative companies like MedTech, BioTech, and so on and so forth through a fund. So a mutual fund and a special purpose fund. And it also advises innovative companies to list on the New York over-the-counter market, which is a SEC-regulated market where companies with a good business plan and, the range of clients we assist go from those with an idea, just a simple idea that they want to start and make, and transform into an actual application, or those who have already an application, have done the research, have started a company and want to grow. So that's my company. My investment bank is called Emintad, and we have the US franchise called Golden Eagle. So we're based in New York and Dubai, and a little office also in Hong Kong.
Okay, great, Fabio. But Fabio, I
We
just
definitely have to have dinner one time, Fabio. Like you're one of the most fascinating people you meet on these. I thought this last time as well. I mean, it's such an impressive resume and
yeah.
Fascinating breadth of experience. Not often you get people who've been at the academic level and at that hyper commercial, level of investment banking. These two. That's a rare combination together. It's sort of half geek, half wolf, and it's it's the most interesting combination.
Right. I was about to say, Daniel, I now remember I met Fabio in Singapore. Were you there last year, pre-COVID?
No, I wasn't.
No,
Okay.
Fabio. I met Fabio in a conference. I'm trying to remember where. Was it Singapore?
I've been in a couple of conferences, maybe more than a couple of conferences over the years, but the last one was around 2015, something like that. So not recently.
How many partners did you found Emintad with then? Just out of interest. I know this.
How many? Sorry?
How many partners? You said you're a partner at the investment bank.
Oh, just two, like two main partners.
Cool. Okay.
Right. Great. So Fabio, I've got a question for you in that sense. So what other recent investments have you made in the field of biotech and medtech?
We've done a number of, I think it's more interesting to see what we are looking at now, because that's revealing of the recent trends in the sector. There is one company looks extremely interesting. They have developed a device which measures the level of pain. So, as you know, pain cannot be measured objectively. It's when a doctor asks a patient, how much pain are you in? He has to rely on the assessment, on the self-assessment of the patient, of the individual. This device allows an objective measurement, which opens up an incredible array of application. For example, in the opioid crisis, for example, in occupational diseases, for example, in pain therapy. And
can it be used with animals, by the way, or just humans? Can it be used with animals?
It is based on the scan of the human brain, so I'm not sure whether you can do it also on animals. Probably you have to map the, how can I say, snapshot of the animal's brain.
Well, I mean, that's a massive market, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea, but I'm not sure whether, there has been enough research to link what region of an animal's brain is linked
I see.
to pain. If there is a research in that sense, probably can be used even on, I don't know, horses or dogs or whatever.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'll ask.
Yeah, that's a fascinating application. So where are they with it? What stage are they at with it?
They are in phase 2.
Okay, and so they're actually trialing it. And what's the trial? What are the specific trial utility of the application?
Well,
like, is it for cancer patients?
They have to test 2. Let's say they have to proceed on a parallel track, because they need to, first of all, set up the device. Okay, so they have to fine-tune the device, but then they have to also fine-tune the software, which transforms the impulses of the device into a pain level, like a pain scale, right? So they are in this phase. They have already tested it on a number of patients. Now they have to come up with a universal kind of measurement.
But what's the real utility for the thing, other than like, I understand many patients both under and more often over exaggerate the amount of pain they're in, and that can be disconcerting for a doctor. Is there a bigger utility than that, though, such as, if someone is in pain for so long, they can suffer from this, that, the other, and they might not say because they're sitting there quiet. I mean, is there a real? I'm just trying to think of the alternative.
I'll give you a few areas of application. The whole project originated from the opioid crisis in the US, because, as you know, a lot of these quote unquote drug addicts, they go to doctors, they claim to be in pain, they suffer an unbearable pain, and so they get prescription for all sorts of opioids. So this would, in some sense, reduce it would give the doctor a way to measure whether the pain is real or is just a fake claim. This way you would reduce, hopefully, the extent of addiction. But in Italy, for example, 30% of the nurses have been transferred to administrative occupations because they claim to have back pains and they cannot do their job anymore. A huge number of bus drivers also do the same thing. So probably a lot of them are in real pain. Others are just,
True. For government health sponsored programs, that's a bit, and also government, anything that the government pays for, that's a big value add.
Yeah. So, and then there is, like, for cancer patients, as you know, there are some fairly aggressive pain therapies based on morphine and other painkillers. So it could be the measurement of the pain level could help to devise a more efficient and less invasive pain therapy. So these are the three main areas which I can think of, and that have been brought to the forefront. But I'm sure that once you have an accurate and reliable measurement, the applications will be,
it has a human synergy to it, doesn't it?
Hmm?
I mean, it's a great sell, isn't it? It's a great sell, like pain.
Oh, yeah.
That's one thing that is just touches every human being in exactly the
Absolutely.
same way.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. It's a universal thing. So everyone cares about it, and I think it's a yeah. You're right. That's the kind of thing that commercially, just because it speaks to
Yeah, it's a
everyone at the
game
same
changer.
level.
It's the like
Mm.
the almost textbook definition of game changer, such a thing.
Yeah.
Right. So this very interesting technology that I came to know today from Fabio. Fabio, when did you invest into this company, and where this company is, or a startup based out of? Is it one of your existing portfolios? Or?
No, we're helping to devise a funding strategy to for the next phases of the testing. So, for example, you see in MedTech and in pharma, there is a difference, a main difference compared to other sector. Because, for example, if you are in IT or you have found industrial innovation, the market is willing to put money to buy shares of your company to fund the next stage of growth if you already have some revenue, if the company has proven to have a market that can be reasonably expanded. In biotech, you are able to raise money once you've completed or about to complete phase 2 of the FDA trial. Because usually the phase 3 has an 85% chance of success. So if you are a company with a real innovative treatment technology, pharmaceutical discovery, you can start funding before you actually make revenues. So
where
you
are they
can
from?
find
Where
money.
is the company? Is the company US based?
Yeah, it's US based. Yeah.
Right.
How much is it going to raise? What valuation roughly?
They're talking about 18 million. They have over time, not in one shot.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, we should talk about these. I mean, these are the kind of deals that also the Chinese are very keen to invest in.
Yeah,
Because,
we'll
they
talk.
bring
We'll talk
a lot of
afterwards.
synergies. I mean, it's interesting actually, and I think you're going to find this in medtech more and more. There's going to be this hyper competition between the Chinese and the Americans in terms of investing in that space, and often deals that are increasingly tiring to negotiate. But if you can get them done, with both parties, then there's continual funding. So we could see a real expansion in this sector. We could see a massive expansion in the next 20 years because you see, before you had the US just investing, and then basically the UK and Europe leeching off the US investment. I mean, the UK's leached off everyone's investment for years. But I mean, the Europe hasn't leached off it. It's actually France and Italy, right? They made fantastic progress in terms of some specific medical equipment, but if not so much the innovation of the medicine itself. But the US has been the only investor, and I think that's been to everyone, and simply because the rest of us are too preoccupied with wanting a sure thing, what it comes down to. Whereas the US, I think they have a mentality that's more risk taking. It's more
definitely
accepting.
the market is much more sophisticated on the other side of the Atlantic than on the European side. And the attitude towards risk,
and optimism in a sense for the future.
And the
I mean,
exactly.
There's this feeling.
What I find extremely positive in the US venture capital and private equity market is the tolerance for failure. Because when you risk, one of these risks will materialize. So you have to be prepared for a failure. And in Europe, this is still seen with a stigma. and a failure becomes a big deal. In the US, it's a fact of life, and you fail, you move on. You are probably, as you said at the beginning, many of my initiatives have, not delivered the
I
results.
was talking about this morning. An American girl was saying, actually, it was an American friend of mine in New York, and she was saying, "You're extremely strong-minded. How is that?" And I said, "I think it's because I always expect to lose. I'm delusionally optimistic because it's the logical mindset to be in once you've made a decision to do something. Then you should be optimistic. If you choose to do it, then be optimistic, but expect to lose at the same time." And I think they have that mindset so well encompassed. They understand that the likelihood is against them, but they will give it every single shot. And I think, and the Chinese are, anyway, the only other country to have, ironically, to have embraced. And I think it's a big country mentality. I think we're all small countries. There's this big country mentality where you've got a lot of people, you've got a lot of competition, and the ones who are smart are very, very smart. That's true in the US, and it's true in China, certainly. The ones who are smart are very smart. And that creates a certain, that it also creates, I think, a lot of other societies. Everybody is trying to compete at the same level all the time, rather than working on different levels.
So talking about US and China, you said that people fail and it's a part of the life. So what about Southeast Asia? Because you are based in Bangkok.
I think Southeast Asia is more like the UK and Europe. Actually, I think it's more obsessed with high society and obsessed with petty little things and obsessed with appearances and obsessed with coming. And I think everyone is much more status conscious. I see a lot of similarities in Southeast Asia to what I see in Europe and the UK. And I see a lot of similarities in China and America, where everyone's kind of like, well, if they have a lot of money, they're going to show it. But I mean, they've got a lot of money when they're showing it. But if they fail on the way up there, they don't care. They pick up and they get on. And I think the rest of the world has to sort of catch up to that a bit, especially in this specific space. Right. You've got to be so tough. I mean, you think about it. You're not only put through all the agonies that an entrepreneur goes through. You've got trials with various regulatory health, bodies. You've got extremely smart, probably the smartest people in the world as a group, a general group of doctors. You've got them who are picking it apart day by day. I mean, it's like entrepreneurialism at the most brutal level possible, right? So I think you got to be. I think but I think what we've done is we've left one country to be responsible for this innovation. Certainly in the 20th century. And it's good to see one other country there, and I think the rest of us should sort of pick up a little bit. I mean, we can't just feed off to, the big countries. I mean, we've got a lot of environments in these smaller countries and localized climates where we can test much more accurately. We can gauge a lot of early stage ideas much more accurate, and if only people would sort of put in the effort. I do think that's a big problem here, and I do think that's why relatively we haven't made that much progress.
Right. Good to have those insights from both Daniel and Fabio. Thanks a lot. Thanks. I mean, you've just not only touched on investments, entrepreneurs, failed entrepreneurs, different countries, US, China, South Asia, like everything, culturally, how the mindsets are different. Good to know the perspectives. It's very important, especially if you're an investor and you want to, or a startup, you want to expand into different regions and geographies. It's very important to understand these cultural differences and mindset nuances that I call. Thank you, Daniel, for that. Daniel, just want to ask you, because you are an entrepreneur yourself and you've traveled globally, lived globally. So what are what are the advice that you give to startups to build a sustainable business, scale, and attract the needed investment post-COVID?
For a start, and I've said this before in other talks, but I don't think actually it matters whether you're in COVID, whether you're not in COVID, whether you're in World War II, whether you're in World War I. I think it actually, to be honest with you, these times can be the best times to start.
Right.
Because the greatest opportunities, there's disruptions. So I would say, number one, look for the disruptions in whatever it is. Usually they're disruptions in supply chains that become the most obvious. That's where you can start going, ooh, wait a minute. And you start noticing things, and then you can start putting things, you can start assembling things differently. Now, this is very important, specifically for technology in general, and also this type of technology. Assembling things differently is a key. I mean, I guarantee Fabios guys who are doing that pain thing, I bet there was the initial thing was that it's the way they were assembling, both conceptually and technologically, the way that their system was working. That's always the drive through the breakthrough, and that's easier to see in the disruptive time. So don't think, oh, actually, an uptime is probably the worst time you can have for an entrepreneur. It's great if you work for a big organization, and it's great if you've got a very comfortable resource center around you. But actually, it's pretty tough when you're an entrepreneur to be right at the top of a market, which everyone doing so well, and no one really wants to hear what you have to say. I mean, you can get somewhere with it, but I think you've got to start in these trials. So I would actually say, number one, don't worry about the time you're in. But number two, if you do worry about the time you're in, then you're probably in the best time there is right now, because there's a number of disruptions that there won't be for quite a long time. Don't lose this chance, because once it starts taking off again, you'll be left behind, and you won't be able to do it as cheaply, as easily. You can get access to people. One thing I love about recessions and disruptive economies is you get access to the chief executives of some of the largest countries, companies, just by calling them up, because no one's got anything to do. You can write them an email and they'll probably answer back. In fact, I've had a number of those done, which I hadn't had since about 2007, 2008, I remember, where I did a number of significant deals at that time. And I noticed that the business has been unusually interesting lately. And that's simply because there are people who are, they don't have a lot going on, and you get that access, get in there, make it happen. Or sometimes you don't have to come in with a specific idea, but talk to people.
Right. So does that mean that, especially during these times of crisis, or when we're disrupted, the whole globe is disrupted, you have access to more talented people for cheap?
Well, it's not that. It's that you have access. It's that things are all messed up. So when things are, as an entrepreneur, you should thrive on chaos. If you cannot thrive on chaos, don't be an entrepreneur. Chaos should be your best time. If you can take chaos and you can assemble it logically, you will be a successful entrepreneur. If you cannot do that, you should never be an entrepreneur. I don't know, Fabio, what would you say about that? You probably had your fair share of experiences.
Yeah, Fabio? Yeah.
No, so I subscribe to every word you said, but I would add one aspect. You're a good entrepreneur if you solve somebody's problem, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who want to solve problems that don't exist or that are not so pressing, right? So they go and they invent all these smart devices, and then they try to market it and nobody pays attention.
Right.
And they say, oh, but how is it possible? Just because.
You're absolutely right. At the times that I haven't succeeded, I haven't been doing that enough. That's exactly what, every time it's just been, well, where's the problem we're really solving? You're totally right. Yeah.
So, the reason why you thrive at times of chaos or a time of crisis is because new problems arise, and therefore you need somebody to solve them, right? So that's why the problem and the opportunity. this dichotomy that
I think that's right.
that we always hear about. It's at its maximum during times of crisis, or when the world is changing, or when an industry undergoes changes. And the other thing is that it must be, a problem, a substantial, a critical problem, because if you go and you try to market something, a piece of the value chain, and you make it, you manufacture this piece at a 20% discount, that doesn't work, because people say, ain't broken, don't fix it. So you have a hard time to sell something that constitutes a marginal improvement. You have to be able to come up with something that it's easy to explain, and that makes life different.
That's correct.
Marginal improvement you can have it, within a company, if you have a new product, but you have already a market and you have already, a bunch of clients and so on and so forth. But if you want to launch a startup solving a marginal problem, you most likely are going to fail. Or
you do that within a big organization, in a department. That's right. Actually, that's what we've had too much of the last 5 years in particular. We've had just endless amounts of marginal solution providing at immense cost. And it's sort of like, what are we all doing here? And they're boring. They're boring to watch. I think people would rather see something exciting fail than something boring guzzle cash and just put them to sleep every time. And I think entrepreneurs are often a bit nervous to be daring, but this is what makes you attractive to an investment community and the wider world, that you are trying. Not that you are, if you're trying intelligently, that you are like Fabios saying, it's got to be a big gap and you've got to be really trying to plug it, and it's got to be obvious, and you've got to be doing it intelligently. If you can show this, it doesn't matter whether you fall flat. People will be impressed by the effort, but it will take up your whole life for a bit. That's very true. The problem has to be meaningful. It has to mean something to you, not. That's. I think there's been a lot of that the last few years, particularly, in technology. There's been just endless amounts of this, just these solutions that aren't.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, for those insights. Really, eye-opener for most of us here. I just want to ask one question. What do you see emerging new products during this pandemic that you wouldn't have seen before pre-COVID in your scope of work?
Some of them. So one of them. A couple of them I'm actually bringing to market currently. I think Internet of Things was something that people spoke about a lot 5 or 10 years ago. And there was lots of research on it and research reports, and everyone has done this really fake version of Internet of Things innovation in the last few years. I actually see and a lot of this stuff, it's interesting. I haven't said this before, but I would give speeches before, and I talk about financing on increased volume, increased velocity of transactions, and I didn't really know what I was talking about. I was just using an intuition, sometimes that's where it starts. 5 or 10 years ago, everyone was using their intuition as to what Internet of Things meant. They didn't concretely understand what it meant, and I think there's going to be a massive concrete visualization of this, encapsulation of real solutions. I'm talking about you buy a laptop, buy a car, buy a phone, and it ends up costing nothing or being profitable to own. That is a solution we're working on at the moment. And that sort of scale of, where you're actually reversing depreciation. I think you're going to get these incredible solutions that are going to come out that are just going to fundamentally alter our whole perception of economic reality So I think that's going to be there, and I think that's going to have so many knock-on effects. That's my personal opinion.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Fabio, what do you see emerging new products because of the pandemic?
I'm afraid that it is too early to say, because now we are in this hopefully temporary situation in which there is no vaccine, and therefore we take a certain set of precaution. We try not to travel much, we don't go to crowded places, and so on and so forth. If within 6 months they'll find a vaccine, we'll move to a different equilibrium, to use the economist jargon. So I would imagine this equilibrium will be certainly with more smart working and smart conferencing, smart meeting. So the physical presence finally will become less critical, or it won't be as important as in the pre-COVID time. Whether this will disrupt the value chains, as the global value chains, as many have predicted, I don't know.
Right.
It might for, I don't know, a year maybe, but then the value chain are disrupted and reconstructed around convenience and cost considerations. So if at some point producing in Vietnam rather than in, I don't know, Montenegro for an Italian company makes more sense, they will produce in Vietnam. And they will not give much weight to the COVID experience if the cost advantage is clearly in favor of Vietnam.
Right. Okay.
So he's absolutely right. During the UK mad cow disease, one of my very good friends and one of the largest butchers in the UK, and I remember seeing him on holiday and saying, "So how's things? How's business? Family?" And he said, "Oh, it's actually fine because we just discounted everything and they're all buying it." People are so price sensitive. This was meat that they thought sort of had mad cow disease on it, but when they put the price down by 25%, everyone went and bought it. And people are so price responsive and cost responsive, it almost governs our life to a ridiculous extent, actually. So I think that's right. I think that if anything, the pendulum will swing that much harder back. And I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to be so well positioned in terms of providing those solutions. You've really got to think. I mean, there's a lot of wage stagnation. There is a lot of rising asset prices, not so much the consumer goods costs, but asset prices and things. If you can find a solution how kids can come out of university and buy a house in 2 years, that's a real solution, because that's a solution that used to be something that happened 20 or 30 years ago, and now it's not a solution at all. And you've got these kids kind of living, and this dysfunctional society of no growth. So this is a big improvement if you can. I haven't thought of how to do that, but I'm saying, let's say in banking or lending, you wanted to get into it, instead of this sort of decentralized lending on the blockchain, which is helping nobody, earn an extra 5 or 10 grand, it doesn't matter. I think you've got, no, it's just speculating and punting, but really solve it. If you're going to take on lending, solve a damn problem. Let a kid buy a house, because that's a real problem. And I tell you what, you'd be a hero. Instead of a few investors make a bit more money. And I'm guilty of that as well. I've designed those products, and I can tell you, they will leave your reputation nowhere. Not as in a bad place, but they just won't get you anywhere, and you won't really make that. It won't be worth it. You're better off going for those big issues. And I think prices and costs and just kind of the basic leaping points. See, right. Because it's all got reorganized, right? So you don't have apprenticeships and everything in the same way that you used to. So there needs to be solutions for these. I mean, you're going to have a EdTech and online education conference sometime soon. Maybe some of those will get answered. But, you know, these things, these stopgaps need to be answered. People need to have ownership in something in order to feel that they are valuable and in order to contribute in a valuable way. You know, if you just keep banging people into, you know, the parents' houses and telling them to get, you know, jobs that they don't value, they're not going to bring to work anything that they value. So I think, yeah, I think these start at the economy level. I think they could be massively improved.
Right. I think you have touched upon points that everybody talks about, but you know, we just talk about it. But this is the right time to highlight them.
It is. It can't get worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got a whole bunch of millennial generation, largest generation in the world, and they're the most educated generation in the world. They're the most multilingual generation in the world, and they're also, compared to all those things, the poorest comparatively for their education, all the other things that go with it. And that's going to be a big problem. So, but at the same time, they've got to get together and kind of figure out a new economic paradigm and stop listening to people in government and authority. There's so much fear these days. Oh, you shouldn't question this. You shouldn't question it. You should. You should question break a law if you have to. Break it. It won't do you that. I tell you what, if you break a law intelligently, you could go to jail for that for a period of time and you could come out stronger for it. If there's no right course, I'm not saying that that's advisable. I'm saying that it wouldn't be inadvisable in today's. Play it safe. You know, I feel like there's so much marketing to the PR, the media. What do people think? Who cares what people think? What are you trying to do? And how far would you go to do it? And I think these two questions govern great entrepreneurship. Yeah. And it's been forgotten.
You're right. You have to be brave enough to be an entrepreneur. Absolutely.
You've got to be insane, brave, and very smart. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings to my next question. What are the most popular mistakes made by startups, entrepreneurs that make them to fail fundraising? I mean, you know, so you've got fantastic product solution and everything else, but there's something that obviously didn't work out in your favor when you're trying to fundraise. Fabio, would you like to take that question?
You're asking about fundraising.
So yeah, basically.
Yeah, she's saying like, what's the biggest mistakes that an entrepreneur makes that makes you go, I'm not going to invest in that?
I mean, yeah. Thanks for helping.
The biggest mistake is not to have an idea of what the market is, how difficult it is to access this market. I mean, the most common mistake is to think that just because you have something, a device, an innovation, or whatever, that is great, the market will pick it up immediately and will soak it up in a matter of weeks or months. That is the biggest mistake. Even if you have invented the Midas touch, you have to market it. And you have to convince people that that's actually something they want. Now, some innovations are self-explanatory, although that's the exception. Most of the time, the innovation has to go through a layer of obstacles. The procurement, the CFO, the technical analysis, the certification, and so on and so forth. All these stages are difficult to overcome. All these hurdles, all these layers of checks are difficult to overcome when you approach a client. So you have to be aware that it's a long haul. It's not something.
So true. It's years. It's years. If 3 years and you're probably just about breaking ice and going, I know what I'm talking about. 5 years, you're there.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
it's a years, it's not months. You're right. People pitch too early and they pitch with too little knowledge and too great expectations.
Yeah.
And then they get their hopes dashed. True.
Yeah, but if you're a startup,
Yeah.
the burden of proof to convince, say, a major multinational to buy your stuff is on you. And that burden of proof is really heavy. So you may spend 2 or 3 years getting into the roster of the suppliers of, say, names like Volkswagen, Siemens, IBM, whatever. And you have to be ready for this
That's true. And
long,
also,
long and painful process.
I would say from personal experience, and I say this as being one who's been guilty of it and come through the other side. Entrepreneurialism requires a lot of willpower, right? And self-determination. Don't confuse that with ego. You need a great team and you need them, and they are just as valid. They are just every single bit, if not more valid than you are as the front. You can confuse a really great entrepreneur does not confuse being the front man with being the most important or the only thing there. It's like a band. When you see a rock band, there's a lot of people there seeing different members of the band, and that's what makes up the collection of fans, and that's what creates the culture. If you are just you, front and center, you're only going to have one very one-dimensional culture of way of doing business and fans and whatever branding, and it's not gonna work. I mean, I have 2 guys who stuck with, and also be appreciative. I think it's very hard for entrepreneurs to be appreciative because you spend so much time fighting, but you must be appreciative. I mean, I have in particular 2 guys who, have stuck it out with me through thick and thin loss. There were 2 of the last 3 years that were really brutal before things really turned up. And, they stuck with me on no pay, doing nothing. I mean, literally just being consistently there wherever I are. And you have to really appreciate at a gut level how important, how valuable that is, and really feel appreciative. And I think if you don't, investors think they feel it. They feel it somehow, and they think, this egomaniac, no way I'm going to give my money to him. It's a feeling. So you kind of create that culture.
Right. So, Fabio, thank you, Daniel. Fabio, I have got some, because we are finishing off soon, I have questions for you. So what are the best practices followed by VC firms before they invest into any startup?
Unfortunately, there isn't, I'm going to say, a set of predefined rules. It's a combination. What I might underscore here is this. When you invest in a startup, which is high human capital intensive, in other words, when you buy the ideas of an entrepreneur, you as a VC fund, as the manager of VC fund, must remember that your asset is the human capital, that is the brain of the entrepreneur that comes to you and asks for financial support. But that asset is very mobile. So if he decides, the promoter of the startup decides to leave, or if you have few entrepreneurs who then fight among themselves, as a VC fund, you don't own anything. You own maybe a couple of computer screens and 2 keyboards. So when you invest in a startup, you must remember that it's an investment in people, not in a company with a track record, with assets, and with a portfolio of clients and revenues and so on and so forth. You take a bet, and the bet is on people, not on a business. This, in my view, is something that a lot of people don't understand. They think that they can run the company or influence the company because they keep 1 or 2 or 3 seats on the board.
Right.
If the VC fund, has some sort of diatribe, has different views from the promoters, it's the promoters' view that prevails, because you don't have any leverage de facto. Right. So for this reason, it's difficult to establish a set of precise rules, because you're dealing with individuals, each one, and very intelligent, very, driven people, and each one has its own, idiosyncrasies, characteristics, good and bad. So you have to learn how to navigate through these different personalities.
So for you, it's very important to have the smart people.
It's what? Sorry?
So for you, it's very important to have the right fit in terms of people in the team before you invest.
Yeah.
If I could take back. Okay, cool.
You know what I do? I have the Scacciavillani test. You know what's the Scacciavillani test?
No.
I get invited to the house of the person who is seeking funding, okay?
Right.
And then I ask to use the bathroom. If the bathroom is clean and in good shape and in good order, I give him money. If not, I don't. Why? Because that means that, if somebody keeps the bathroom clean and in good standing, he means that he has, a mental discipline. If he doesn't, it means that he's not able to go through, how can I say, doesn't have a systematic approach to life.
The thing that'll get you through the down times as an entrepreneur, the easiest, is bucking up on that discipline. I mean, when things go badly, this is when to have a haircut. Make sure you're fresh shirts. Make sure inside your house. This is when you keep it damn straight, because otherwise you're going to spiral off. They'll think you're an artist, not an entrepreneur, or a failed artist. So that is very important. That mental discipline is key. You can let it relax a bit when things relax, and it will naturally come through. But when things get bad, literally pull it together. That's so true. Down to your personal hygiene, especially because entrepreneurs' personal hygiene is not always the greatest, because they're idea people and they're working 3 days straight. But you got to have a shower. You got to look the part.
Right. Thank you. Mental hygiene and personal hygiene. Thank
you.
Yeah,
I think it's more of a problem for boys than it is.
And a clean shave reveals a lot about personalities, more than a thorough financial analysis or a business plan.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. I had a father who was always like, but it's true. It makes a difference.
Right. Great. So that brings us to the end of the session. I just want to know, what are your closing remarks for today's session? Daniel, I mean, this is the first time I think you're speaking at VCTV. What do you think about the show?
Well, that was a lot of fun. I mean, that's one of the most honestly entertaining. I tell you what, this shows that these groups are so effective when they're kept kind of small. I think the temptation with these things is to put lots of panelists on, like you do. It's like more is better. Actually, this was an interesting one, because it showed me that actually this kind of it's 2 or 3 people is adequate, and actually will make for a more interesting. Well, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it was very enjoyable to participate in and educational from that point of view, because more discussion, deep discussion, a deep discussion can be had, maybe. So I felt the discussion was much deeper here because of the limited scale of participants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of our outstanding speaker panelist, Fabio, yeah. And of course, Sunny, you're incredibly professional, and I can see why they put you as the face of this thing. Actually, you've got a real natural kind of star quality.
Oh, so
you do.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for those compliments. Fabio, what are your closing remarks for the show?
I had a lot of fun. The only thing is I'm not in the best place for connection. So you might have heard this background noise because I'm outside, but that's, I'm in a tourist resort. And so since there are 10 times more people than during the, during the year, during the normal times of the year, the 4G connection is kind of faulty. But other than that, it's I learned a lot. I mean, I have to say that I'm happy to have been on the same wavelength as my as Daniel, my co-event speaker, and so I'll be happy to participate in other events.
Great, awesome. I had an excellent time with both of you. So like a little family up close and personal discussions, little private discussion, which is
very good.
Yeah, thanks both of you for sharing your insights. It was fun as well, engaging as well. So we have these shows Monday to Friday, and you can go and watch shows at www.latoken.com/events. And just let me know whatever interests you. I can always invite you for other panels. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe. Stay connected. And speak later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Thanks for inviting me.
Bye.
Thanks.